But of course also we do come to make commitment again on what we did promise at the beginning of the year. Now definitely today being a Tuesday means that we fast tracking again towards the end of the week, but also running fast into the year 2022. I'm with my colleagues Robert and Mollen, and definitely we're here to take you through our normal drills. Clearly Mollen is putting on green. She says she's in love with green. I don't know, grasshopper green, melon green, but nevertheless, good morning, Mollen.
Yes, good morning, Felix and Kirabo, and of course, good morning to you, dear viewers. Well, green is green. Now, this green, I think you can understand it. I don't have to attach it to grass or grasshoppers or anything. Yeah, but I love green. It's my favorite color. So,
Robert was saying that times have changed, and clearly many things have changed earlier, but something has stayed constant is the purpose of women in community, and that argument has been quite vivid. Even yesterday, one of the socialites comes out to say that if we don't invest in women, we won't change the world. Robert, are we doing the right investment most recently about this whole thing about pregnant students and
good morning, Felix.
Lactating mothers? Oh, I don't know to call them lactating students or mothers, I don't know.
These are child mothers. Good morning, Felix. Good morning, Ruben. Good morning,
Ruben.
Talk about women. This
Ruben.
I'm thinking Ruben is at the center of this conversation.
Ruben's mark is evident.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting issue that Felix you brought up, and this is the issue of pregnant girls. First, I want to say everybody deserves a second chance in life. That is why we even have prisons. And for many offenses, these are people that have to be removed out of society because they're acting in unbecoming manner or something that is totally out of the many. So they are taken to prison, and there is what we call rehabilitation done on them. They could have committed very big offenses, but in the wisdom of the enforcers and all societies, because prisons are everywhere globally, it is to rehabilitate them. So what about a girl who is below the age of consent that has gotten pregnant? Maybe she has been exploited. Why not give her a second chance? And in this situation, this is a girl that have sat home for 2 years. Giving them additional 2 years out of school, you find that many may not even make it, because people bring up this argument that let them first give birth, then return. But by the time a child at the age of 16 conceives, that means even the longer she stays out of school, she's even more vulnerable. More parents are going to decide, let her get married. Some are going to say, well, there's no reason why she should go back. So to save this girl, educate a girl, educate a nation. Let her stay in school, because when she was in school, she did not become pregnant. So it is proven that the safe haven is school. So we rather give her a second chance. Keep her in school.
It's evident now.
Well protected, rather than saying let her stay out, breastfeed, give birth.
So,
at the end of the day, it is more risk
for her
to be out.
All that said, I think we shall pick up from this. This discussion is quite controversial, and clearly it has sparked quite a number of reactions, even on social media, even from parents. I had a big back and forth from the Church of Uganda, the Archdiocese, I think, of is it Mukono, and so sorry, the Diocese of Mukono that has about 4 provinces, and many others. The discussion is quite parallel to the facts or to the expectation of government.
But why do I feel like most of the controversy is coming in from men? Because clearly the support that is coming through from the women and from mothers who are advising these kids to go back to school and, you know, urging teachers to really be considerate. These are mothers, their mothers, who are supporting them to be in school. But now the controversy is coming from the men who are not supportive, and these are their fathers, because even if you're not a father of a girl child right now, you will be at some point. And for you to assume that your child is this, you know, spirit that will never go wrong or fail, to consider something like that. It's just not realistic, because any child at that age can be exposed to that kind of, probably even sexual harassment. Most of them were defiled. Most of them were raped. So for you to assume that this is just, their carelessness, they are young. These kids have been young, and they were, like Robert said, in a society where it has not been easy to control them, like the safe haven, which is schools. So I think they really need a chance, and much of the support that they are getting right now is just from the mothers. So I'm thinking if the male community was to also, come up and they're supporting them, they will feel free to be in school. But also with this whole bashing from either side, it's not helpful. So
clearly they need a chance, Mollen says, and she does call upon all of us to give them a chance. The ball is in your hands. The schools, the owners, the directors, and probably the teachers, you can do something to contribute to the help that these girls need. Absolutely, they do need a chance. They need an opportunity with life, but that is a relative approach or subjective approach to this discussion, depending on how able some of the facilities are. But of course, also much has been happening. Now, yesterday we did also have AFCON on UBC. Much of the games did happen. For some of you who are keen to note, the games are a bit dwindling, but nevertheless we're getting there. And of course, we do again pack ourselves back to feel the commitment of giving you all the 52 games as they have been happening, of course, live on UBC. Now again, even today, be able to catch the same various games today, of course, with nice and of course professional commentary and analysis from our team back here, the likes of John Baz, Sentamu, Ruben, Kasera, Mpima, Otai, and of course Fifi. We have Michael and very many other guys. So
Otai has been tagged the best commentator around, and so there's a time he wasn't consistent, and everyone on social media was calling upon Otai. So he has become an issue. He's the celebrity in this AFCON. His commentary is taking Ugandans at a good pace, and I think they love more of him. So Otai, just make sure that you're there.
Okay, so big up on yourself, Otai, and we expect more and more and more. But of course, apart from that, much has been also happening in terms of current affairs, on the spectrum of education, on the spectrum of politics, parliament, just to mention but a few. But of course, also globally, magic happened yesterday when we saw one of the most successful ever done surgery, and a man was given a pig's heart. Anatomy defied. That's a discussion for me and Mollen, who know a bit of this.
Yeah, and, my biology was good.
Really?
I did biology up to A level.
Oh, well, and that's where you left it. But anyway, let's take a look at the
Did you have to add that? Did you have to add that?
That's how far you could go with it. But anyway, let's take a look at the stories. And of course, we'll be looking at local stories and international stories. And thereafter, we will be able to dive into the other segments like the newsreel, where we expect to have a discussion into, again, the reopening of schools. What's been the reaction? How has been met up till yesterday and today? Which schools, which classes will be going in today, tomorrow, till the end of the week? What's the expectation? How is the observance of the SOPs? And how are schools reacting to all this? How many schools have been able to reopen? How many are closed? And what's the turn up so far? But of course, after that, we'll be also looking at what's happening on the roads, how you're getting yourself to town with Mollen. But also on top of that, she'll be giving us weather, nature, and environment. I don't know what she has in store for us. Mollen.
Well, it has been quite a number of years right now before we looked at the records, but it's important to note that the last 7 years have been the warmest on record, and we take a look into 2021, which has been the 5th warmest in that category.
Okay, Robert, of course, Robert then will come in at the hour of 8, clearly with a topical discussion, and as he does call it, a matter of national importance. Robert, what matter would that be today?
Well, today we are going to be looking at that trade order. Remember, it was yesterday when the deadline given to vendors to leave the streets of Kampala expired. So we are going to be having an official from Kampala Capital City Authority on the way forward. Where are the spaces they talked about, Safi and other matters, and what is the future for these vendors that have been making ends meet on the streets, and now it is a dangerous or no-go zone for them.
Well, of course, thereafter we'll be having Ruben with the sports updates, of course, with major focus on the AFCON. For me, I would want him to answer the question of what are the benefits, what's in for African countries. Previously, we used to have African Cup of Nations being focus for African countries, but now the world is watching. Are we delivering as expected? One of the guys who's a football don in Uganda said that is this shitty football? Is it called shitty? Shitty? So I hope you're not seeing that, because the world is watching clearly, and Asia, America, and are we giving the best to the world in terms of what's been, at least for the games we have seen, for the expectations we had? And for me, that's something I would want him to give concern. And in relation to the previous AFCONs, the AFCONs where we had the Nwankwo Kanus of this world, the Talibo West of this world, the Roger Millers, just to mention but a few. But of course, all as you wait for all that, let's take a look at what's happening or what happened in the stories locally, and of course later on we'll be looking at those stories internationally.
And we will begin with reporting of students back to school or learners that happened yesterday, the first day. How did it go? We head direct to the taxi park where we saw as schools reopened yesterday, UBC TV visited a number of parks to assess the traveling of students, but few were seen boarding heading to schools. This literally means that some parents are still facing financial hardships to return their children to school. In the old taxi park that has been just opened, drivers attributed the low turn-up to COVID-19 that affected the income of many parents.
Well, more in that story. You look at schools reopening. Now, the turn-up of students and pupils on the first day of reopening schools is quite fair. However, students testified to the strange environment with the hope to cope up. Now, school heads in Kampala say that parents have responded positively to the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education directive, and taken their children back to school, although decry the lack of finances.
Still, now we move to crime away from the reopening of schools, and the General Court Martial charged and remanded 15 suspects who are accused of killing police officers in different parts of the country. The 15 suspects are said to belong to a terrorist group named Uganda National Coalition Force for Change, are facing 7 counts related to murder, aggravated robbery, treason, among others. They have been remanded to Luzira government prison until the 24th of this month.
Now, more on security. Uganda police is holding 60 suspects over the escalating insecurity along the northern bypass. Now, the police spokesperson Fred Enanga attributes the attacks on the poor planning and architectural design, together with lack of no security lights. We move on to international stories.
Well, of course, now we look at our first international story. Man gets genetically modified pig heart in world first transplant. A US man has become the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. David Burnett, 57, is doing well 3 days after the experimental 7-hour procedure in Baltimore, doctors said. Now, the transplant was considered the last hope of saving Mr. Burnett's life through, though it is not yet clear what his long-term chances of survival are. It was either die or do this transplant, Mr. Burnett explained the day before the surgery. Now, I know it's a shot in the dark, but it's my last choice, he said. Doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center were granted a special dispensation by the U.S. medical regulator to carry out the procedure on the basis that Mr. Burnett would otherwise have died. Now, still about international stories. North Korea fires suspected ballistic missile second in a week. North Korea fires what may have been a ballistic missile on Tuesday morning, Japan and South Korea said, less than a week after the Penagari arrested what is said was a hypersonic weapon. Now, our military detected a suspected ballistic missile fired by North Korea from the land towards East Sea at around 7:27 a.m. Now, today, Seoul Joint Chief of Staff said in a statement. The launch was also reported by Japan's Coast Guard, which said the North had fired a ballistic missile-like object. We're now back to Africa. Tigray, Biden raises concern about Ethiopia's conflict in Nakol with Abiy. The United States President Joe Biden has spoken with Ethiopian Prime Minister Ahmed Abiy about the continuing conflict in the country and of course raised concerns about the detention under the state of emergency now with the White House. He said Biden also raised concerns about civilian deaths in recent air raids and reaffirmed U.S. commitment to work alongside the African Union and other regional partners to help solve the conflict. Now, the White House also, in a statement on Monday, he did say the U.S. President commended Abiy on the recent release of several political prisoners, and the two leaders discussed ways forward to deal with the conflict in the Tigray.
One being the fifth hottest year on record as emissions surge. The year 2021 was the world's fifth hottest year on record, with levels of planet-warming carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere hitting new highs, as per European Union scientists. Now, the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service said in a report on Monday that the last 7 years were the warmest on record, with a clear margin in records dating back to 1850, and the average global temperature in 2021 was up to 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level. The hottest years on record were 2020 and 2016. The country is committed under the 2015 Paris Agreement to try to limit global temperatures rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The level scientists have said would be able to avoid its worst impacts, and that would require emissions to roughly halve by 2030, but so far they haven't changed much. Now, as greenhouse gas emissions change the planet's climate, the long-term warming trend has continued, and climate change exhibited many of the extreme weather events sweeping the world in 2021, from floods in Europe, China and South Sudan to wildfires in Siberia and the United States.
Well, of course, in relation to that, much still has, of course, happened around the world and, of course, in Uganda, but we do commit again to giving you updates as events do unfold. Now, of course, be able to also share with us or be able to leave comments for us about any story of your interest on our social media platforms. And for some of you who are not able to watch us on TV, you'll be able to get us live on Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, YouTube. Now, leave a comment in relation to any of the stories. But of course, our major discourse again today is about the whole issue of markets and vendors, what Robert called trade order. I mean, one time I had one of my professors, that is Father Katamba, told us that you never say someone is disorganized, because what you call their disorganization is actually their organization. And I've learned from that, as a matter of fact, that when you talk about trade order, it's only order that you define in your own definition. I mean, what do you mean? That's order in your mind. Now you're sending away vendors. We saw some of them have been thrown away left, right, center. Things have been broken. Some are already imprisoned. I've seen people throwing people's mangoes. Well, we would want to hear your comment about this whole thing of trade order, and clearly be able to leave with us a comment about what you think about cities and creating trade order. Should it be inclusive or actually exclusive, for that matter? And probably I'll just pick the mind of my colleagues on set, and I'll start with you, Mollen, just in a minute.
Well, I think that this is something that we have seen coming within the time of Jennifer Musisi. She had actually also advised on the same in Kampala, to have vendors off streets. So I think that this is something that, you know, was foreseen, although it was never really put in action. And this is going to be really, it's going to take a turn on the vendors in Kampala. These are people who have depended on this, and I think they now don't have a way forward towards how they're going to live their lives. Because now what do? Do you have to go outside the city? This is business that they have been used to, and now they have to look for alternatives of how they can live. So this is really unfortunate, but at the same time, looking at how cities are growing, this is something that is quite needed for sure.
Well, that's what
thoughts are, and I would want to pick from Uncle Bob or Chairman Bob. Yes, Robert.
Very interesting question about order. This is my opinion. I believe there is space for everybody, but there must be order.
That's a very polite way of saying leave our streets. But anyway, Robert, that's what Robert thinks. Order is key on top of the agenda. But anyway, we also have a look at our poll question. We expect you guys to share with us your true sense about our poll question. And our poll question is your observation on how schools are prepared with SOPs as they open up. What's your observation on how schools are prepared with SOPs as they open up? Now, SOPs basically looking at standard operating procedures, which entail washing hands, sanitizing, wearing face masks, of course spacing. I don't know how this would be even possible, spacing, because what I remember how we used to line up for food at Shimoni.
Yeah, putting
you know,
spaces now in the food
you would
line.
be like a snake. And if it moves backward, you all move. It moves in front, you all. If it sways, the one worst thing that could ever happen to you in that line if you're thrown out.
Yeah, getting back.
You would cry. In fact,
you don't get to that very position.
If they throw you out when you're like about to reach the posho, you would cry. Like you first, because no one would let you in, man.
Yeah.
But of course there are those darlings who would be like, Carry, move fast. But anyway.
If you're a girl, you would easily get back into the line.
But usually girls have their own line.
Yeah, because you just have to look just cute and plead a little, and then they're like, okay, get back. But
cute
guys,
in primary, no one wanted to know.
No, but girls are just a soft nature. It's easy to allow.
Actually, the truth was that girls had their lines and guys had their lines.
Where I went to, I remember so much that is in danger. The girls had their lines, the boys had their lines.
Yeah.
But now I'm just figuring out if the masks can still be on one's face in that lineup.
Or even the space that has to be there, and you hurrying to get food.
Time I remember I would call it Okube and Pamv. You find yourself somewhere there.
But anyway, Robert is holding something in his hands that clearly you don't have to push anyone for. You just have to walk yourself to the shop, and with 1,500,000 shillings, if I'm not mistaken, you get yourself a bottle
any
of
retail, any supermarket. Hallelujah Reflexology products are there, and this is Hallelujah Ginger Tea Drink and Hallelujah Turmeric Drink. They are there for you, and of course these drinks are not just drinks. One, they boost your immune system, but also importantly is that they have been certified by the National Bureau of Standards, so they are safe for you to consume. Children are going back to school. We know many left. In case you didn't, find a way of giving your child this land a carton or two for them to consume when they are at school, so that they will boost their immune system as well.
Well, of course, now we want to take a break. I'll leave you with our song for the day, and the song by Sandra Subi is quite powerful. The song is in Simi, and absolutely there's
live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live.
These names, you may think you're probably watching the English Premier League or UEFA Champions League, but it's none of those. It's the 2021 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations from 9th January to February 6th, 2022. All these global elite football stars will be in Cameroon to grace the continent's most prestigious sporting event. 52 games, 24 countries, one continent, one trophy, one station, live, free and exclusive to your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Raising voices. As a mother, my children depend on me to make this world a safer place for them. I'm not afraid to act when I see violence in the home and in my community. I promise to talk to my neighbors and friends about how we can nurture and protect the children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
For over 2 years, when schools were closed yesterday, finally we saw the reopening of schools countrywide. And today we want to look at or analyze the first day of reporting or opening of schools in this country, where yesterday we saw a number of issues that raise concern. One of them being the low turn-up, more so when it comes to upcountry schools, where either some parents were financially unable to get their students or children back to school, or also some had fears. Some of the parents I spoke to had a belief that maybe the increasing cases of COVID, anytime we could be going back to a lockdown. So they were a bit hesitant to clear the school dues. Let's first wait. Either if this was the reality or they just didn't have the money, what are some of the things we're going to be discussing this morning. Mollen, did you escort anyone? Did you have maybe a cousin? Anissa, I won't ask for a daughter or a son that reported back yesterday.
You don't know, I could be having kids that are quite many. But yes, I did take some of the kids to school, but most of the boarding schools actually had scheduled for Sunday as well. But my experience is some of these schools are actually ready, although the turn-up is small. I saw a school where they had this disinfection whatever, it's like you go through it, so they would disinfect the kids before they enter the school. And then you look at the way that, schools have actually beefed up their care for the kids that are coming in. They, some of them have this tent where when students are coming in, they're giving them juice, they're giving them food. I am telling you, they're upping the game just to give them that interest of going back to school. You're seeing most of the memes that were coming across social media of kids being pushed to school. Now the schools have made sure that when kids are coming in, they actually love being in school.
Actually,
so they're giving them all these enticing
school
things
that I saw where they were taking
there.
photo shoots.
Yeah, they had a photo booth.
Welcome back.
So you're interested in going to school because of these little things that are around, and you feel like, okay, this is a place to be. So parents didn't have to push these kids to go to school. They actually were there and they were happy, and I think this was a good initiative from schools. I don't think Felix had the same experience. He's probably among the parents who are waiting to see if this is a reality of schools reopening. But also, I want to think that the low turn-up is attributed to the finances, really. If you look at most of the schools that are up country, these parents have been struggling even to feed the kids at home, and these are the people who are even crying for relief to come through in terms of feeding. But now they don't even have the school fees or even money to buy the requirements that the schools want, and schools won't compromise because they're also asking for help. So this is now creating a gap, and I know that this whole week parents are going to be still looking for the money and looking for all these requirements. So we might still be looking at small numbers each day of this week as parents prepare well.
Felix, on the issue of low turn-up, one would expect that parents are eager to see children back in school because they have been home for close to 2 years, some of them, and definitely parents would be eager. We've seen some parents where children being home has been a very big inconvenience, and maybe this was an opportunity to expect almost a big percentage of reporting back, but this wasn't the case. We had a low turn-up.
Well, of course, every parent at this point would want to have their children back in school. That's a matter of fact. It's actually a given. However, it's not enough to want. The requirement is not just wanting to have the kids back in school. The same must be backed up by quite a number of issues, and among them is a financial ability. Also the availability of the learning centers. Between you and me, you know that probably out of every 10 schools, maybe 2 or 1 have been closed, you know. Also the fact that the standards of education have actually gone high, and this is in terms of finances, surprisingly, that some schools have increased tuition, yet the reverse should be true, you understand. So and I don't think it is majorly low turn-up, because it would be unfair for us to conclusively judge the turn-up we saw yesterday, because we have a sequential take back to school. This would be evident for us to measure probably by next week on Monday, because since we have people going today, tomorrow and what, because of that kind of approach, it would be unfair for us to say that the turn-up has been low generally.
Because most of the schools, if you looked at a number of surveys, they will tell you that maybe in the classes that returned, talking about Kampala, Wakiso and MPG, that usually on first day, this is the number we have. Unfortunately, today it's not that number.
So even the ones that did return, even the ones that did return, Felix, were small in numbers. So if they were like, you know, returning S1 and S5, you get halfway the number you usually get. That's already low turn-up.
The reason why I think
that's where
that
the concern is.
in particular was because when they say that returning of S1s is on Monday, doesn't necessarily mean that all S1s will come on Monday. That's why I'm saying the best time for us to evaluate will be after a week. It is unfair for us to say that generally is you get it, because you're allowed to take your kids between the first 2 weeks, and for many reasons. For some of people, time, you know, that is key. For some of people who work, parents and what, distance, you know, even finances, as I've said. But you also won't fail to acknowledge that there's going to be low turn-up generally because of the various reasons or the effects of the COVID-19. And among them, you look at, again, major or top on list is financial challenges. Secondly, natural causes. Some of them we have been discussing, the pregnancy issues, responsibility issues. Some of people have lost their parents, if not them dying, the students. We have had also a number of students who have lost their lives. You know, some of the cases we have been keen to hear, some of the kids we lost among us these 2 years. 2 years has been a long time. So many things have happened. Now, something we have not discussed exhaustively is the issue of the mindset, psychological relationship, the relationship between psychological readiness and education. That's key. That some people may not go back to school because psychologically they are not ready. You can imagine being out of school for 2 years, and let's say you are, by the time you broke up, you were in S3, you should be in S5 or S6 by now, and now you're going back in S3. Look at the body, look at the things you've seen. Some of them, again, you've seen the challenges. Some students are already taken up in businesses, and they're saying, "Chensomo kufuna chenfunaka
tata mperedde avuba
kati nange nvuba," because engege ku mwalo is 20,000. If I can get 7 a day, that is, I'm able to make 140 in a day.
This is what dad has been doing to sustain us.
That's the thing. And again, that's why I think the psychological relationship of the status today vis-a-vis education is something to look out for. Now, there's a big battle between whether, and this is something that is quite contradictory, whether or not we leave these kids to continue with businesses or we push them back in school. One will ask you, for what? Push them back to school for what? To study and make money? They are making money. Now, those are unanswered questions, and no one is talking about them. You get the point. So, when you ask the low turn-up, all those issues are attributed to what?
Mollen, now this brings me to another issue that I noticed yesterday. We know these learners are reporting back, and when I looked at transport means, very congested. When you look at these learners coming from different communities and coming together, one of the things that came to my mind is we might have an outburst of COVID-19 cases in schools. Let's look at SOPs, the standard operating procedures, how they are observed, your analysis on first day within the school atmosphere.
Well, Robert, like I mentioned earlier, there are some schools who have really made it key to make sure that they are observing SOPs, but also not forgetting the challenges with some of the schools that are completely unable to do that, because the schools where we saw that had this disinfection chambers for students to pass through, that was actually one school that I noticed, but other schools can't even afford having that. And then you look at the fact that ministry did advise for them to have, for example, in dormitories, they have to have this social distance. But now, these are schools who they have not prepared to have extra dormitories. So they're still going to use the old facilities. And with these old facilities, it's going to be hard for them to social distance the kids because it's not enough. If you're going to say, okay, so let's practice social distance in dormitories, then that means you're chasing away some of the students. It will not be enough. So this is going to be a challenge. But also you look at the fact that these are kids who are below age. Most of them have not been infected, and there was a huge drive about teachers getting vaccinated. So I want to believe that the adults in the schools, the teachers, the matrons, the wardens, the people taking care of these kids are already vaccinated, and maybe with low chances of getting infected. But we are not going to rule out the possibility, although I'm seeing a case where most of the schools that are congested themselves and unable to put across the SOPs are going to be more affected. But the schools that are doing well will avoid most of that, because we also saw one of the schools in Kampala, I think, where they were able to social distance the dormitories. Even when they were reporting, you see there is that distance that is there between the parents and the kids. So they have already planned out this. But this is also like business for schools now. And this is going to be challenging for the schools that are unable to do this, because for the schools that are practicing this, and some of the parents, some of us who are seated home looking, okay, which school is really doing good, we are going to rush to the schools that are practicing better. So it's business, and they are attracting more parents by doing that. So I think it's a good strategy, and as schools now, you have to really, up your game. Because now it's no longer about students looking for schools or parents looking for schools. Some of the schools are actually looking for students.
Well, there's an experience I had yesterday, and I noticed that sometimes parents were held hostage because of school administration and their rules. I escorted a colleague of mine and said, well, can we have a look at the dormitory? Told us it is our rule. Parents don't go to the dormitory area.
Which was a good thing. I think it's a very good rule.
So I'm like,
yeah, but you see, this is going to pose a challenge, because this parent wants to know.
Do you have any isolation center in case there are cases that have COVID-19? So have you put up an isolation center, which is one of the requirements of the Ministry of Education? And I was told yes, but it's within the dormitory area.
Which is still restricted.
Which is still restricted. Felix, looking at preparation, away from just having the SOPs in case of management of these cases. The last time schools had the staggered reopening for the second lockdown, one of the things that came out clearly, schools concealed 6 students because they were afraid, maybe thinking we'll lose market, because education went commercial. So names matter, the name of a school and everything. We had children that were gotten from school very ill, seriously sick, and these infected the grannies and all that. Readiness to control, to manage in these school settings.
If in relation to what you asked, you were saying, how many students died in the last wave?
Not up with the statistics.
But okay,
very few.
Did you hear of any?
Very few.
If there was, that is quite symbolic. The kind of cluster of human beings you're dealing with is not as exposed as the others. we cannot ask for a leg, an arm, a nose, and ear from schools. They can only do so much about some things. The existence of or the availability of a prepared school can only go as far as they can afford. This can be well checked in relation to what has been the contribution of government. You understand? And if you want to cause two evaluations, start with the government schools. I don't know if the school visit was government or private.
Church-founded.
So, because the ones who are supposed to crack the whip, how ready are they? It would be a good example. But if even those ones have failed, you may not have to come hard on
Actually,
these
private
ones.
schools in these issues
Have done better. Absolutely.
They're doing better.
And
One of the government school head told
and
me
it's as
not
simple as
received
that.
The cooptation grant. We know it has been received, but we've not received it.
Now,
So are we going to
because
move?
of
I
that,
was saying it's becoming business because because now, like, the parent who was asking, okay, can I see what you have, and they were restricting them from doing that, it doesn't stop me as a parent to take my child somewhere else because I'm not sure of the living conditions.
You
I'm
know,
not sure whether you have this isolation center. I'll be forced to take my kid to this private school that has it all figured out.
You parents sometimes expect so much from other people, yet you people do not even deliver the list of your expectations.
But of course, we are paying an arm and a leg.
You know, let me tell you, Robert, sometimes I think in a situation of COVID, we just have to work together. That's the only thing I have realized. And in everything, not just in education, we just have to work together. When you go and you try to press the school, why don't you have this, why don't you have this? Well, because I pay school fees. I think that's not fair. For example, you're talking about an isolation center. Let's be honest, you know what is an isolation center. You get the point. You're talking about what? Social distancing in the dormitory?
Which is an impossibility.
Let's be serious. Have you been to dormitories?
It is an impossibility.
Schools are not ready. They are not prepared.
You look at, actually, let us focus on government schools. Go to classrooms. A class that has over 100 students. You get the point. I think as we take back our students to school, let's not try and to be extreme. And for me, I am deeply concerned by some of the people who want to be so extreme, you know. Hey, where is the disinfectant? Do you know the cost of a disinfectant? I think
but they are
we are
paying
missing.
for it.
No, people, this whole thing of paying.
You know how much money actually schools have put on that list?
You know,
all in the name
let
of
me just say this
SOPs,
lastly.
all in the name of preparing for reopening.
Basics.
And
So if they've added this money and I'm going to pay for it, then where is the facility that you're providing?
Let me just
because
say
most of
this.
those lists actually had provisions
the
for
only thing we
COVID-19
can demand
SOPs.
from schools as schools reopen is the minimum standard.
Yeah.
That we have a place where our children can wash their hands, and it is gazetted, probably a number of points, 4 or 5 points in a school, that at least every after maybe a meter or two there's accessible water and soap. Secondly, that every child can have a face mask. That in the event that we have a symptomatic person, we have the first aid kit towards that, in terms of cough, if they have a sore throat. And if let's have some testing kits at school, maybe at the clinic or the sick bay, that we can be able to identify. Most recent people think everyone who has a cough has COVID. Everyone who's sneezing has. I don't think that's the approach. You know, we cannot ask for heaven from these schools. I think let's be realistic. Let's not make it hard for us. Everyone is struggling. You people, you should take notice that these schools have not been earning for 2 years. You get it? If they ask for some of these, it's probably to cover up. What's the use of not having these schools around? We are already feeling the pinch. Because as I've told you, out of every 10 schools, maybe 2 or 1 have been closed. I know of schools personally. Today, they are rentals.
Others people are using them
secondly,
for poultry.
Do you remember some schools have candidates? You know how hard it is to switch candidates from one school to another. Imagine the child was in P7, you are going to S4, S6. All all these things. So I think for me, it is a hard situation for everyone, and that includes government.
Well, now
let's not ask for so much, but let's just see how to work together.
Very interesting. Let's look for the basics and the minimums to push forward. Let's now look at another issue that has become very controversial as we reopen schools, or as schools open. That is admission of pregnant girls.
Why don't you leave these pregnant girls alone?
Yesterday, we saw stories all over where some of them attempted to go and they were denied. Number of schools I saw. Chisas here in Kampala, I think
it's very sad.
One of the schools there saying, no, for us, go, deliver, come back and study. In Mukono, under Church of Uganda, it was very clear. The bishop there came out and said, we're not denying them a second chance, but a class where there are pregnant mothers, where there are child mothers, who have pregnant young girls, that is not a classroom, something else. Let them give birth, and even said,
it's a maternity ward.
You have freedom to take them elsewhere, but for us, we cannot have these. These, first and foremost, are considered below age, that they are not in the right age to determine or give consent to such actions. That is one. So they are below 18 years. Second, these girls we are talking about, home has not been safe for them, or community. That's why they have returned pregnant. School seemingly is their safe haven, because there's this argument that let them first give birth, but it's not guarantee that when they give birth they return to school. Many could be married off. Many after giving birth, maybe another pregnancy may come their way. Many may become rejects of society and all that. I want your comment briefly.
Well, I want to think that it's really sad that we are even still talking about the issue of whether or not pregnant students should be allowed back in school. Because when you compare such a situation, you know, some of the people saying that this is going to be uncomfortable, they're going to feel like, you know, they're sleepy, nausea. We have had teachers who teach these very classes pregnant. And we have not noticed cases where a teacher is just in the middle of a lesson and then they have to go out and go vomit. This is not something that happens all the time.
Maybe their bodies are mature enough to handle.
It's not about the bodies being mature enough, but I believe that these students can go back to school and they can study as well as someone else. There might be a little difference, but it doesn't mean that schools right now should be rejecting them. And then you also look at the issue that ministry has directed schools to actually allow these kids back in school. So I wonder how, and it's actually even sad to see that the church is taking this very serious. They are the same people who should actually be encouraging these students.
Forgiving.
By now they should have had a way to encourage them. Churches have been known for that, and I'm disappointed with these ones. I'm very disappointed.
It's very okay to be disappointed.
It is not right for them to make it a point, and you know, now they're advertising it everywhere. They are also stopping these other schools who have allowed them, who initially wanted to have these students back in school, from doing that, because now they're like, okay, so the church is also rejecting these students. Why are you doing that? You look at the time that these kids have been in lockdown, 2 years, and unfortunately they got pregnant.
You're giving them another additional 2 years.
So you want to add them more 2 years. Now you look at what will happen after, because 1 year they will give birth, and then you also consider another year for them to, you know, nurse the kids and all that. But I want to believe these are 3 to 4 months of school. These kids can take the 3 to 4 months. Before you know it, they're actually giving birth within the holidays. So I don't think that it is a right move for schools to be rejecting students. But you also look at the parents of these kids who have gotten pregnant. They have also wanted their kids to go back to school, and they want to support them. So now it seems like it's the schools that are failing them. Yet the ministry has said, do not, you know, stop this. And I want intervention even right now from the ministry about some of the schools, especially now these church schools that are rejecting and making it a point.
Well, yesterday the minister, that is the Minister for Higher Education, said he's going to have a meeting with the church and better explain, throw more light to this issue. But Felix, what precedent are we setting? Because this is one of the arguments that the Church of Uganda is looking at and saying, what precedent are you setting? Let's begin with that.
You know, Robert, when you talk about education, you talk about it loosely. You make it look like it is like attending a service, then you go a service. Education entails a lot of things, and I speak this with direct relationship to academics. It is not just about bringing your body to a classroom. You know, as you come as a jerrycan, you sit. No, it entails many things. This is learning. It entails concentration. It entails participation. It entails psychological ability to do many things. Actually, that's why if you notice that some classes we tell children, do not make noise. These are some of the things. Keep quiet. You have seen some of this in schools. It is to create an environment that can facilitate learning. Now, we have started. We are studying amoeba biology on amabere gatong. This one is saying I'm covered breastfeed. You know, let's be serious and not only distracting herself, but every other person around. The back is what, and not that we have anything against pregnant children. By the way, and I want to be categorically clear on this. We are not blaming you for what happened,
because your failure in one way or the other.
Well, it's sometimes you disguising behind.
Look, you're condemning society failed, family failed. No,
but that's the truth.
This is the truth. Society failed to protect these young girls. Okay, family failed to protect these young girls because
do you want us to give them medals?
But are you guys considering the fact that even when we're talking about this, these kids have a right to education? Every Ugandan has a right to education.
By the way,
if you are rejecting them and stopping them from going to school, you're denying them their right to go back to school, because they are showing you that they're actually ready. When you talk about
as you wind up this Mollen,
just a moment.
In the interest of time,
when you're talking about a psychological issue and you're rejecting them and you're stopping them from going to school, you're actually psychologically torturing them.
You want us to make a party
so they are ready. You don't make a party for them, but don't reject them because they are ready for it.
Finally, Mollen.
Should we be here applauding? No, let me just say this, Robert.
What precedent are we setting?
Do you want us to applaud when
you don't need to do that, but treat them equally. Treat them equally.
They cannot be equality because they are pregnant.
Well, the pregnancy is not the mind. It's not stopping them from learning.
Well, guys, in the interest of time, we leave this to you. Our viewer to continue with this discussion. You can see how heated it is, and of course, the way forward still remains a dilemma to many school heads. Let's just once again take a look at our poll question this morning.
Well, and that is your observation on how schools are prepared with SOPs as they open up. Of course, now be able to hit our social medias. That is hashtag UBCGMU and our WhatsApp 0709602592. Your observation on how schools are prepared with the standard operating procedures as they open up. Well, of course, some of you did already hit media platforms and have shared some of your messages.
Well, someone from Makindye is also talking about street vendors. Says, good morning, the fantastic three. I've never seen any big city across borders with street vendors scattered everywhere. So let them go to different markets and stalls that are available. Kampala can make the best city minus street vendors and hawkers.
So well, we can save that in the 8 o'clock hour because it's the topic we are going to be discussing. But thank you so much for your feedback and of course keeping in touch with us here. When we return, allow us to look at what is trending in the print media this morning. We return shortly.
Raising voices.
As a mother, my children depend on me to make this world a safer place for them. I'm not afraid to act when I see violence in the home and in my community. I promise to talk to my neighbors and friends about how we can nurture and protect the children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Mohamed Salah, Naby Keita, Kalidou Koulibaly, Sadio Mane, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. When you hear these names, you may think you're probably watching the English Premier League or UEFA Champions League, but it's none of those. It's the 2021 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations from 9th January to February 6th, 2022. All these global elite football stars will be in Cameroon to grace the continent's most prestigious sporting event. 52 games, 24 countries, one continent, one trophy, one station, live, free and exclusive to your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda. Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, we give you an insight into conversations that will shape the day, but also ensure that you're well versed with what you need to know locally and globally. Now it's time that we take a glimpse of what is in the papers this morning. And in the New Vision, student loan scheme list is out. Those that were lucky to benefit from that. Then also government clarifies on pregnant students, something we've just been discussing here. And still the New Vision gives you a glimpse on back to school at last, what happened in the various areas where students had to report back or learn as public schools get 20 billion for standard operating procedures, more ADF suspects arrested, and also we have 15 charged over killing police officer.
Well, of course, in the Daily Monitor, now cheers and tears as schools reopen, but also government and bishop clash over pregnant girls at school. And, of course, producer Kakweza, dead or alive, Justice Musa Sekana gave security agencies up to tomorrow to produce, of course, with the writ of habeas corpus. Now, do not miss the deal at water, the various tenders there, and of course, still in the papers, they talk about 60 people arrested over Northern Bypass crimes and police killings, 15 get charged with murder, and Nyagak Power Dam works behind a schedule. Now, still about the same, producer Kakwenza, dead or alive, court gives an order, but also Uganda, today in history, Uganda, that is a Greenlays Bank signs treaty, and Harero people of Southwest Africa begin uprising. That was in 1904. Well, of course, also they give you the fight COVID, stay safe, the updates on what's how many cases there are in Uganda and of course globally.
Back to the New Vision, beginning with the COVID tracker. That is positivity rate is at 9.4%. New death 18. Then we have total deaths, that is 3,357. Looking at new cases registered, 749. Well, today in history, according to the New Vision, on this very date, the year 1989, Makerere University launches lottery, and still on the same date, but the year 1989, Cuban troops begin leaving Angola. Looking at sports, Felix?
Well, of course, in the Daily Monitor, Mane Hearts Warriors, Atlas Lion Dim Stars there, and of course, Farao wants a control again, ego out of a fly. And Djokovic wins landmark case, that is in the Australian Open, and we want the doubles, says Express boss. But also still in sports there, that is a Chisano's dream, debut drags Athens to the top, and brothers defying size to represent Uganda.
In the New Vision Sports, a tough call, that is regarding the Africa the Nations Cup here, but also they give you, that is the scores and the games that are going to be played today and the results of those that were played yesterday. But don't forget, more of this, Ruben will be here to give you an insight into sports updates and all those catchy, interesting and light moments in the world of sports.
Now, of course, in the Daily Nation, more Kenyans sink into poverty, report comes out to say, and that is ahead of their election. They give you some of the statistics of how people are faring there in Kenya. Now, Raila accuses DP Ruto of divisive politics, and of course big boosts for local cane producers, and of course diagnosis, much more of those stories. But of course also something quite interesting, again we want to remind you, is that AFCON is live on UBC now on all, and of course Star TV, Magic One, and all our radio networks, that is 11 networks. For some of you who love the UBC West, we have Butevo, we have Magic 100, and of course on our TVs you have UBC, Star TV, and of course Magic again there, and many of them. Now today, of course, being the 11th day of January, we expect to have Algeria versus Sierra Leone. That is at 4 p.m. Nigeria, one of the best teams there ever, have been, of course, in this tournament. They're at 7 p.m. Nigeria and Egypt. This is a very good game to look out for. And of course, Sudan versus Guinea-Bissau. Now, all these games are quite interesting, and the expectation is that you'll be able to have them on U24, Star TV, Magic One, that is Magic, of course, also the radio UBC West, that is Star FM, and UBC Red. But of course, majorly here, of course, on UBC, we have the Lions, and of course the giant guys in sports there will be giving us good commentary and what to look out for. Some of you who love the I don't know what is Kapapa in English? Kapepa? Betting. Well, yeah, be able to. It is only with the analysis that you get from the experts on UBC, you'll be able probably to be guided on where to put your bet. But also, make sure you don't bet fees, as Robert has said. But far from that, Ruben later on, of course, will come back to give us much more insight in the tournament. But of course, looking at the comparison of the previous AFCONs that we have had, as we said earlier, the ones that had the Talibo Wests, the ones that had the Okochas of this world, the Etos, the Nwanku Kanus, Roger is quite a long time. But when you look at the likes of Papa Diop, all those ones, and the recent one, are we giving the world what it expects? Africa has been the beacon of, this cup has been hyped. We used to have, like every after AFCON, you have over 50 players bought in different big leagues. Are we seeing this? We're only looking out for about 4 or 5 players in the league. So probably Ruben will give us an insight in that, and why are we not seeing this grow? But also, of course, we want to take you through again just a few comments from the poll question that we did ask you earlier, and keep those comments coming in. But of course, some of you took onto the social medias, to our platforms, to tell us, to share with us, and among those we see that is Tony Kent Chaze, one of our colleagues. Majority of the upright and positive Ugandans are adhering to SOPs, but even amongst them, some think otherwise. That aside, because we are a practical country, now many know the disease kills and are compliant. How about we give everything priority? Many borders are not helmeting. Well, I don't know if that word is there, Kent. Helmeting. Putting on their helmets. So the latter is helmeting. Okay, thank you so much, Kent. Yeah, but by the way, he does bring into contemplation a very, very key aspect of where your safety gear. Now that you guys are riding our students to schools, make sure you purchase a helmet. I know it's a bit costly. It costs about 300, even more. Yeah, but it's about saving your life. Let these toddlers that they take in the morning have a helmet, put them in cardigans, 2 or 3 sweaters, let them have a scarf.
It goes from 50,000 to about 70.
You see, Uncle Bob, the one who
so much
has been in this business, has told us.
Well,
so, but anyway, we also want to look at what's happening on the roads and how you get yourself into Kampala with Mollen, Kenyena. And later on, of course, she'll be taking us through weather, nature and environment. Mollen.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm starting to wonder if Robert and Felix are actually paying school fees for anyone this term. And that is a question that I will soon get answers. I'll dig deeper myself and find out, and be sure I'll share that information. But well, let's get on the road, and we're going to start off with Kampala-Jinja Highway, which seems to be quite clear for this morning. But as you head towards the Airtel clock tower, that is where the traffic starts to build up. You do have, as you move from the Kampala-Jinja Highway towards the clock tower, now you also have the roads that are joining in that seem to be quite clear. You take a look at Wampeo Avenue with that green line, also looking at very clear traffic. So with all these roads coming towards this tower, that is where the traffic starts to build up. Now you continue along still the Kampala-Jinja Highway. Then you look at the traffic as you come into the city. That is where there is a little bit of traffic, and also it has a lot to do with most of the cars that are now joining in through these other roads. That is creating a little bit of traffic. Also for the cars that are leaving town towards this area, now it becomes quite clear as you head towards the roundabout that again traffic builds up. But once you leave the roundabout, that road is quite clear if you're headed out of the city. But also continuing with that road, we now cross over and also joining to Access Road. Now Access Road seems to be having quite clear traffic for this morning heading into the Kampala-Jinja Highway. So that is also one that is quite clear. You look at Yusufulure, which is also looking into those green lines, which is quite clear traffic over there. But also as you head towards Kampala Road, it is quite clear traffic from Kampala-Jinja Highway heading into the Kampala Road. Quite clear traffic for this morning actually, like you would normally find a lot of traffic on Kampala Road, but today seems to be quite clear as you head towards town. Now it starts to build up as you head towards the city square there. That's where we have a little bit of traffic, but also I think that has to do with most of the roads that are joining in towards that main road. You look at Entebbe Road as well as you join towards Kampala Road. There is a little bit of traffic, but it's just a short distance. So between the Kampala Road and Luwumu Street, that small distance is where we have a little bit of traffic, but other than that, Entebbe Road seems to be quite clear all the way towards the Queen's Tower, and that area is also starting to look like it might be having quite clear traffic. Now we do have a lot of traffic building up towards the Market Square Road, and that is also joining in towards Entebbe Road, but it clears up as you head into Entebbe Road. Now continuing with Kampala Road, we look at a little bit of traffic as you leave that interjection towards Entebbe Road. Now there is a little bit of clear traffic if you're heading outside the city, but coming into the city there is quite a little bit of traffic, but also for a small distance. Now there are alternatives to avoid the jam. You look at Speak Road upper to the upper City Square. Before you reach City Square, actually that is where there is a little bit of quite clear traffic, so that can be an alternative if you are heading out of the city to avoid Kampala Road. You also look at the upper roads like Shimoni Road, which is quite clear for this morning, heading into also Speak Road. Nile Avenue is as well clear, so you can avoid Kampala Road and take that route towards Nile Avenue, and that can get you onto the Kampala-Jinja Highway without dealing with the traffic within the city. Now also look at that road towards the square. Now those heading outside the city is quite clear, but the one joining into Kampala road is where we have a little bit of traffic, and that stretches all the way from Buganda Road towards Kampala Road, so that is the one to look out for. There is a little bit of traffic. However, the upper side of Buganda Road seems to be quite clear, so that is also one alternative to take. And if you're headed, by the way, if you don't have to get on Kampala Road, you can use that Buganda Road and join through towards the square. Also use Shimoni Road. That could be a clear alternative. Also, you could also join the upper side towards Lumumba and also go through Taman Avenue, and that is one that can also get you onto the Kampala Jinja Highway if that's where you're headed. Also, for other areas within the city, you don't have to necessarily go through Kampala Road, which has a little bit of traffic for this morning. But you look at also Nakasero Road having a little bit of traffic this morning for those headed into the city, and that stretches quite a distance actually for Nakasero Road. There is where you see that orange line. There is a little bit of traffic building up, and I think there are also schools along that road, so maybe it also is connected to the fact that most of the parents are taking back students for the schools along that road, and that could have created a little bit of traffic. Now going across Nakasero Road, you look at more of the traffic building up across that area, and that is one that is most likely to also keep up for quite a distance. And I think also that is attributed to the fact that we do have quite a number of schools across that road. So if you're not taking kids to school, if you don't have to be really along this road, this is one that you can avoid. It's better you take the Lumumba Avenue, and also maybe you can use Buganda Road, because this seems to be having a little bit of traffic across that entire road. So it would even be better to deal with Kampala Road than the traffic right now that is on Nakasero Road, and that could help you get to wherever you're going in time. Well, away from the traffic, we also want to look at the weather that is happening across the country for this morning. But before that, we also look into the story that is making headlines right now about 2021 being on record for one of the warmest years on record. Now, we have had a lot of years, especially above 2000, that have been on record. But now we look at the 7 warmest years on record, and that takes in 2021, which has been the 5th in that line. Now, this data is coming in from Copernicus, one of the guys that actually bring us most of the satellite data. They compile this data together with ECMW, looking at what is happening in the space. Now you look at this correlation above 1991 to 2000 levels, where you see the orange lines. Even here in Africa, mostly North Africa, that is where the temperatures have been increasing most. Now also part of that is towards the western part and central of Uganda. You look at areas of Somalia, and mostly northern Africa is where we're seeing most of the numbers with the rising trend. Now we do have at least South Africa not in that category. Still temperatures are below 0 when you look at the warming trend, but still this is something that is worrying. When you look at the differences that have been there in terms of warming, we used to have a time where you would find all this covered in blue, really, with no a lot of trends in temperatures. But now with the new analysis coming up with 2021, we were worrying about this increasing rate at which we are looking at, and our target is by 2030 we should have temperatures not rising above 1.5 degrees Celsius. But so far, even this report that did come up with NOAA and the World Meteorological Organization shows that we could be looking at temperatures between 0.93 degrees Celsius to 1.2 degrees. So this is going to also look like one of the years where we've had temperatures going above 1 degree Celsius. So I don't think even by 2030 we will be able to limit the rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this is worrying, because now that is what is feeding into the climate change that is disrupting our nature right now. But also looking into the forecast that has been made onto how 2022 is most likely to look like, and that is globally. Look at the trend that has come up, and this was in partnership with the Met Office that is looking at how temperatures have been rising over the years, and that is starting from 2020. So you look at that blue line that is coming across, still looking at most of the observed temperatures. Now these have been, the temperatures that were manually observed by the meteorological stations, by the weather guys on the ground, to look at how temperatures have been like. And also you look at the estimates. So the yellow line is showing the estimates estimates for how 2022 is going to look like, 2021 has been like, and also all these years above 2000. And it's clear that you can see this rising trend, especially when you look at 2016. And also it's important to note that 2016 is so far among the warmest years in record, and also actually the warmest. It is tying with 2020 when we talk about the warmest years so far on record, and you can see the curve is actually higher than all the levels that have been there. Now, all this orange line that you're seeing there, these are forecast ranges for possible outcomes, and that is 95% confidence levels that these are possible outcomes of what we're looking at. And looking at 2022, that is in question right now, you look at the fact that we do have at least hope that temperatures will be coming down, but also not to the levels of 2000 if you look at how 2000 was like. So either way, this is above 1 degree Celsius. You look at that scale that is showing us the global average temperatures compared to the pre-industrial levels, and pre-industrial levels we're talking about 1850s to 1900. Now, all these years that we're looking at, the 7 warmest years, are all above 1 degree Celsius, and this is what is worrying, because we are not going to be able to reach our target of 1.5 degrees Celsius, keeping temperatures to this when we have this kind of rising trend. So 2016, they are having the highest on record. You look at 2020, which is also tying with 2016 as the warmest years on record so far. But the good news is that we look at the forecast that has been made for 2022, that is at least showing us a little bit of declining trend, but also not to be happy about it, because it is still going into the numbers of 1 degree Celsius, that is above pre-industrial level. So that could only mean, what is the implication of this temperature rise when we look at the weather that we could expect? I look at that. You look at the fact that this is going to increase more of the heat trapped in the atmosphere. When we talk about greenhouse gases, what is even causing this rise in temperatures globally? You look at the mostly 90% of this rise is actually attributed to human activities. And when we're talking about abolishing or avoiding fossil fuels, this is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid this kind of rise in temperatures, because what happens with these fossil fuels is that we are increasing all the emissions in the atmosphere that are actually causing this kind of rise. And even pre-industrial level means that when we started building up all these industries, this is what we are causing. We are just increasing temperatures in the atmosphere, and in turn, we're looking at the extreme events that we're talking about here every day. Every day we have a report that is showing, there has been wildfires somewhere that were killing people. There has been, flooding. And recently also in Uganda, for the last 10 years, we did see a climate status report that was coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority that was also showing us that we are warming at a very fast rate. Even for areas that have been, cooler across Uganda, like, Kabale Highlands, these are also starting to warm up. And this is what meteorologists are saying. With this trend, we're going to be looking at more landslides. We did have one of the most devastating one, that is the 2010 landslides in Bududa. We could be looking at more of that. We look at more of the floods. And for areas that have been more affected, that is like Kasese, also still in the forecast that was given out during that climate status report, it did show that even areas within Kasese are most likely to, keep up with those extreme weather events. So we are going to look at more flooding. We're going to look at more drought cases, especially for areas that have been hotspots for droughts, like the Karamoja region. So this is something that we are concerned about, and looking at where we're headed, we need to really double down and look at better ways to really handle human activities, move to renewable energy if possible. Now, when other people are starting to invest in renewable energy, I don't see the reason why we should be investing more in the fossil fuels that are soon getting out of market, that are soon getting, phased out. So this is something that we should all be concerned about if you look at what the statistics are showing right now. But away from what is in the future forecast, let's look at what is in the forecast for this morning and the weather that we are experiencing right now as we speak. And this is tapping in from the satellites that are across and over Uganda right now. Now, good news for this morning is we do have a rainy system that is over the central part of northern Uganda, and this has been really something I think much awaited for. This area has been quite dry for the last couple of days, for the last 2 weeks actually. Now this morning there is that rainy system that is coming through. These are well much needed rains for this area, and I think they're not even severe, just a rainy system that is coming across, and that is enough to cool down things over there. So I think even the fact that it might interrupt your morning as you're heading, taking students back, or even the kids that are going back to school. And also rain is considered good luck. So as students go back to school, and I think it's kind of good luck that it did come in through across parts of northern Uganda there, likes of Gulu. You look at Kitgum, Padel, that area is having a little bit of mostly cloudy weather with those rains coming through as well. Now that same system is stretching across parts of central and also the Lake Choga region. Now that is starting to clear away. That is for Lake Choga, but we do expect more to keep building up across that area, and much of the morning might be associated with mostly cloudy weather across that area. Now we also look at it being part of the eastern side of Lake Victoria, where we have Tororo, Jinja, Tororo. Right now as we speak, we do have mostly cloudy weather with a little bit of rains over a few areas, especially those that are around Lake Victoria, and that is where we're having most of the forecast looking at rainy conditions for this morning. We do have one that is also building up towards western Uganda and also the southern parts, the southern half of the country. And is stretching away, stretching all the way from areas of Mwanza towards the country, and that could be bringing us rains, most especially the western side of Lake Victoria, and that is also good news for that area, because at least we've been having mostly sunny weather, sunny intervals across that area. Now where we're seeing mostly sunny weather for this morning, we are looking at areas within central Kampala as well, but having a little bit of clouds. There is a mixture of those cloudy conditions. Wakiso, Mukono, that area is still having mostly a sunny morning with a little bit of clouds. You also look at Karamoja region, which continues to have that dry weather and sunny weather, and it's just interesting how this rainy system is just concentrating in central Uganda. Now my wish is that it could spread more and get into Karamoja, because that area has also been dealing with mostly sunny weather for quite a time. But there is hope, maybe as most of these systems start to develop and spread the good luck. Hopefully we have a weather prophet who is going to transfer those rains. Now that is not going to be me, but for this morning we can expect a little bit of pleasant weather across mostly parts of central Uganda. Look at western Uganda as well, having in a little bit of a mix of clouds and sunshine. We do have rains that will be coming through across western Uganda, but that is only for the morning, and we'll see most of these systems, even the one in northern Uganda, clear up later as the day progresses. But most of the rains that are expected will be around Lake Victoria and also a little bit of Lake Choga region. But away from that, we might look at a clear day that is for mostly eastern Uganda as well as the Karamoja region. Well, I want to leave you with that. In terms of weather, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through that, and also later we'll be having sports, much of the focus on AFCON. And I think like Robert and Felix were saying, I think we're judging this AFCON really too early. We have stars that are coming up, and just because we haven't seen them play, we can't compare it to what has been happening in the past. We are looking forward, even however much their little numbers, we're looking forward to the likes of Salah, the likes of Mane playing. So I think it's too early to judge and compare to the previous AFCONs. We need to give it time. But Ruben will be here to take you through a lot of that, and later we'll be having Good Morning Uganda Extra by Jagenda. Well, I want to wish you a wonderful morning. My name is Mollen, Kenyena.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love myself.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Co Uganda, Office of the President.
Mohamed Salah, Nabi Keita, Kalidou Koulibaly, Sadio Mane, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, When you hear these names, you may think you're probably watching the English Premier League or UEFA Champions League, but it's none of those. It's the 2021 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations from 9th January to February 6, 2022. All these global elite football stars will be in Cameroon to grace the continent's most prestigious sporting event. 52 games, 24 countries, one continent, one trophy, one station, live, free and exclusive to your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
how to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Raising Voices.
As a teacher, I have the opportunity to shape how children grow and learn. I believe in creating a non-violent school where children feel safe and respected. I promise to lead by example and create a different kind of relationship with my learners, one that helps them grow.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising Voices.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Jingati drink and Hallelujah Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Hallelujah Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.